KSFinancial.com, an equal opportunity lender.
At the KSMO studios, well, David Massengale made his way in, so we do have representation today. How are you, sir?
Good. Good. It was raining out there. Does my hair look okay on air?
Looks great.
That's good.
Looks great.
Yeah, that's good.
Except for that one little colic sitting up. I mean,
standing up in the middle. There we go.
Besides that one.
Yeah, that was a shocker this morning.
Well, it shouldn't be with that tropical system down there just throwing all this moisture up. You know, we know it's going to happen.
Right. That's the thing. Here it comes sort of thing.
Yeah,
it was just.
But just don't know when.
Just don't know when. That's going to be the thing.
And there's going to be that throughout the day today. So we're kind of ready for it.
Yeah.
So
that's
how
good.
you been?
Good.
How about them Tigers? Did you go?
I saw those Tigers. University of Tennessee Martin is not a big school by any means, but it's part of the Tennessee system, I think. Yeah, like Missouri S&T would be.
Right.
And they looked good. They're going to be tested more and more this season, I think. So that's going to be, big test in Alabama, big test with Georgia at home in Columbia, and some things like that. But they act like they're kind of working together.
Defense sounded a little better than it did against Missouri State last year.
Yes.
Boy,
they've improved. So. Shredded. We had a lot of returners, I think, from this season, from last season to this year. So
yeah. Well, they've gone around with a little bit different attitude, I think, with defense. Than
I think that's right too. They've changed some coaching and some things like that, so they've done some different stuff. So they look good. Good.
New offensive coordinator decided to throw a double tight end look out there.
Derek Dooley coming from the Dallas Cowboys moving in there. So that's going to be a different thing. I know Drew Lock, the quarterback, was very excited to have a professional, somebody from the professional league. Coming in there to help kind of manage the offense. So
well, not only that, when you have dual tight ends, one can go out, one can block.
That's right.
Because he had a lot of times no help back
That's
there.
Right. That's right.
Anybody who watched Missouri last year knows that the line was spread out. I mean, he had spread the line so far out.
Right.
If somebody wanted to shoot a gap, it was not real hard to do.
It wasn't hard. You could get a linebacker to sneak through there pretty quick. And
So anyway,
that's right.
That has changed a bit.
Yes, it's going to be good. It's going to be interesting anyway.
I mean, you could roll up a lot of offense, and when things are rolling good with that offense, are good. But boy, if you got a good defensive team and they see a weakness, they're gonna exploit it big time.
That's right.
Yeah, very good.
That's right.
All right. Well, anyway, okay. Thanks for coming.
Okay, and next we'll be talking about the environment.
Why not?
That's it for sports.
Okay, so the rain is cleaned out of the air. We're good.
There we're weather. Okay, now we've covered weather.
Okay, very good. So anyway, my friend, what's happening with our world of conservation out there and Forest Service work? It's
changing. The weather's starting to change a little bit. You're starting to feel it a little bit. We're getting a little cooler mornings and things like that. So. And of course, the drought has a lot of people have lost most of the leaves on their walnuts are almost on the ground now, and some things like that. So they're starting to shut down early just to make sure they're ready for the winter. But it's fall's kind of coming on. It's kind of changing season. So we're busy kind of getting ready for our new fiscal year, which starts October 1st. So we're kind of finishing up some purchases and getting some contracts finished up and that sort of thing to be ready for the next year.
We talk about trees and tree stress, and you know a lot more about this than I do, but we have had again this year another.
Yes.
We haven't had as bad a drought as some other areas.
As some others, that's true.
We definitely have had areas where it does put stress on trees. Now, you sometimes then you see these storms come up with not the heaviest winds, and you see these trees just topple right on over. There's nothing to hold them in the ground, is there?
It gets so dry. In some cases, it gets dry and it turns to concrete. So it's hard to dig a hole. It's hard to this sort of thing. The trees are trying to draw as much moisture as they can, and if they've got good root systems that are going pretty deep, they do all right. They'll survive it. That's the thing. Trees have been here for millions of years, basically. But it's that whole thing where the tree will kind of stop producing. It may not produce as much fruit. It may not produce as many leaves. It may not grow again that summer. It just kind of sits and waits.
It's dormant.
It kind of goes dormant. It's just sort of waiting on a little moisture, and it'll get a little bit here and there, and it'll that sort of thing. Some trees, like Kentucky coffee tree is a good example, particularly smaller trees. Walnut, box elder, which is in the maple family, they're kind of bottomland species. They're used to having their feet wet. And so when it gets dry, they're like, that's it, I'm done. And they just start dropping leaves. And they're like, I'll see you next spring, And we've noticed that a lot, that there's been a lot of trees stressing a little bit over that kind of thing.
A couple of elm trees that have dropped some leaves,
yes,
too.
Browning a little bit. They get kind of a real brownish look on their leaves. It looks bad.
And then when the wind blows, those browning ones, they all fall.
Yep. And, of course, this goes back to we had talked about before, the white oak, this rapid white oak decline, which we'd noticed in some places. Conservation Department folks had seen it on conservation areas. And seemed to be in the drainages, where if a tree was growing down there, probably had its feet in water a little bit more, so it was able, even in a drought, was able to reach some water. Well, in 2012, when it got really dry, even that water disappeared, and that's why a lot of those trees along the drainages just gave up. They just died because they could not survive. The trees on the hills, which were toughened because they're used to drought and that sort of thing, they lived through it. They suffered, but they lived through it. But yeah, like you said, we're lucky this wasn't a hard drought. It was just kind of a sort of a typical midsummer kind of thing, but it was a little worse than that, I suppose. But
well, usually during the midsummer we get those little pop-up showers.
Yeah,
we didn't get a lot of those this year.
We didn't,
and when we did, they were very short-lived.
Right.
They'd come through and they'd leave a dust. Well, I always call it a dust buffer. They'd come up, blow dust on your car, and they'd go away.
Yeah, that's right.
Wash it off,
just
man.
enough to get it stuck on your car. That's exactly right.
I don't want to see where the spots were. I want you to wash it off.
Yeah, that's right. It was frustrating when it would dump. And then you'd go home and you're like, oh, let me check the rain gauge, and it showed maybe a tenth.
If that.
And it was like,
usually.
oh, yeah.
This little shower we had right here, we got a little measurement of a little over 1/8 of an inch.
Oh, is that right?
But it came down quick, fast, and hard.
Yeah.
And then it was done.
Yeah.
But that's usually how that works.
Right. And we're getting runoff right now, too. Right. It's been so dry that some of it's hard for it to soak. So if we can get a couple of these kind of intermittent kind of things coming in on us, that maybe it'll kind of loosen up the soil a little bit. So when we get, I don't know, what are they predicting now? I know Jeff City was like in the 4-inch, Columbia 4-inch.
Anywhere from 2.5 to 7. It depends on what you look at. It just really depends, and they don't know the track of Gordon yet.
They don't even really know.
They really know. They think, and here's what their last synopsis is that it's going to curl up through Arkansas, hit Springfield, and then catch up with a jet stream and then go to St. Louis.
Yes, head up I-44.
If that would happen, our area could actually get hit twice. So
coming
we get
up
it on
and
the
then
way
turning.
up, and then when it goes back up.
So. Yeah. And they say, if I understand it right, the left-hand side, as you're looking at the map, the left-hand side of a hurricane is worse than the right-hand side because the left-hand side is what's bringing the water. And so we kind of would be on that left-hand side both times.
That's the one that's curling through Arkansas now, going towards Springfield. So,
yeah.
But what you're getting right now, what we're getting is on the right-hand side, that moisture that's catapulting up, but our humidity levels have been at 100%.
Right.
So
that's right.
All you need to do is add a little bit more water to that, and hey, where are we going to go? I don't know. Let's just fall.
Let's just dump. That's right.
Let's just fall.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what we're getting.
Yeah.
The interesting thing about that is that with this amount of rain that we're, let's say, supposedly going to get,
right,
any of the fuel in the forests.
Oh yeah.
And this the 2.5, 3, 4-inch rain, that's going to wetten up everything.
It will. It will make it very wet. We'll see some of the drier fuels. We've been lucky. I'm trying to think. I don't think we had any wildfires on Salem this summer. Occasionally we get knock on wood. Occasionally we'll get a weird one. Somebody lets something get away, or it just ends up in a lightning strike. It's rare, but happens. Lightning strike with very little rain, which we were just talking about.
And we've had that.
And we've had that. It strikes a dead tree. It gets fire inside it. It might rain just a little bit, but not enough to put the fire out. The tree burns on the inside, eventually falls down or starts throwing stuff out on the ground, and it starts fire. But we haven't had very much. I don't think we've had a wildfire on our district that I can think of this summer. So we've been pretty good from that standpoint, even as dry as it got. But I know, too, that they'd like to do occasionally some fall burns if they can find some areas they can burn in the fall if it dries long enough. But, yeah.
There have been some scheduled burns that have not gotten done.
They're not getting done. And it is one of those things. They end up with a hard target that you must burn this many acres this year. And then it's kind of like, okay, but what if it rains the entire year? We're not going to make that.
Or it's windy.
Or it's windy. Or it's high humidity. Or it's,
As you guys always say, the conditions have to be perfect. And they can change
as
you're getting prepared for that fire.
That's right. And they when they write their plans, their burn plans, they're very specific as to how much humidity they can have or how little humidity they can have, what maximum temperature they can have, winds and all this kind of stuff, because they have to manage not only the fire, its intensity in the woods, because they don't want to kill everything, but they may want to kill certain things, small things or something, if they're trying to open up the stand. But at the same time, they've got to manage the smoke. Is it blowing towards St. Louis? Is it blowing towards Bunker? Is it blowing, someplace else where you've got a population where they're like, yeah, I don't want to be breathing smoke today. Or can you get enough heat in it that the smoke goes up and out, and so nobody ends up in the smoke? And so, yeah, there's a lot of things like that, too. So this season has been kind of that weird thing, too, where they're kind of having to watch to see if they're going to get enough moisture to maybe make it not as volatile a fire, so that once it dries out for a little bit, they can get it burned. Or are they going to get the 4 to 7 inches that just soaks everything probably for the rest of the winter?
Well, it'll get a good and wet. That's supposed to dry out the next 3 or 4 days of plenty of sunshine. But with that much rain on in the fuel, it's going to take a while for that to dry out.
That's right. The ground will be holding a lot of moisture at that point, and so it's all coming back up into those fuels. So it's going to be hard to get those things to dry out.
So we talk about, and of course we all know if we get 4 to 7 inches of rain, you're going to have a lot of runoff. And a lot of the areas that when we talk about in national forest, there's a lot of low water crossing.
Yes.
And we don't really talk about this very often, but if you are out and about and get caught, you may not be able to take the route that you're normally used to and getting back.
Right. And that's a really good point, because as it is, you know how it is. Bridges are expensive. You can't just put a bridge on every county road everywhere to cross every little creek. But those little creeks can become rivers when you get a bunch of rain, and it can be as little as an inch of rain, and it's in just a perfect spot where it drains off into one spot. And I mean, I've forgotten what they say. Something like if you get 6 inches to a foot of rain, you could that's enough, or water, I should say. That's enough to start floating some cars.
4 inches can actually float.
Maybe that's what it is. That lighter car will actually start
6
lifting.
6 inches can actually, can actually turn a car over.
Turn a car over as it pushes it, sort of thing. So
with the current.
Yeah, you got to be really careful on that. Little heavier vehicles have a little bit of advantage, but yeah, when you get to those places like that, it's just not worth it. Right. It's just turn around.
And when we talk about the national forest too, a lot of people like to do, when they're traveling the forest roads, they do tend to turn around in areas not on the road.
Yeah.
And when you get at this, if we get this much rain and it gets soft, that can do some major damage.
Right. You have to be really careful. Not only could you start really messing up a side as you get stuck and you're trying to spin out of it, or you're doing whatever. You can mess up drainage ditches that now you've got water coming on the road, or you can mess up something in the woods there, a turnoff or something that's now been kind of
Plus
degraded.
It's a long walk.
Plus it's a long walk back to somebody with a chain. Yeah. That's exactly right.
Not a lot of people are probably going down that road at the moment you're stuck.
Yeah, you've got to be really careful.
Right. So you want to kind of gauge and watch the weather before you go out there. You're always welcome to go camping in the woods, but with a prediction of 4 to 7 inches of rain, you may want to be very cautious about where you camp. Yeah. Make sure it's a high spot, and make sure you can get back out if it does start to rain.
Right. We're lucky. It's kind of funny.
Though I know people love to go camping in the rain. I know some people that love it.
Yeah, that it's an adventure sort of thing,
they
right?
Like to hear the water hit the trees.
That's right, and it's okay. That's all right. As long as you're prepared. Like we were saying, able to stay dry, keep some firewood dry to keep you warm if you need to. But yeah, it's funny because Sutton Bluff Campground is one of these weird campgrounds it's not quite in the floodplain. It's like on the next step up above it, which is only, 15 to 20 feet above the river level now on the Black River there. And we have not found a time that the campground has flooded. Even was it 2 years ago that was it last year that we had the really heavy rains, that the current and everybody flooded? So I can't even remember it. We've had so many spring rains that have done that. But even it got really high, but it didn't come in the campground. I mean, and it was the highest we'd ever seen it. Not to say that way back in the past it's done it, but nobody could remember back when water came in that campground. So we're lucky, knock on wood again, that we haven't had enough rain that it drives people out of the campground. So it's a relatively safe campground from that standpoint, but not that you shouldn't be watching. But
that is the upper part of the Black.
That is the upper part of the Black.
So you'd have to have a lot of rain coming through the Iron County, and Reynolds County, up that way toward Potosi, getting down in that way. when we had the 12-incher in one day, that was out in the Houston area.
Right.
And down to where on Montauk, we had some of that down there. And that all ran down the Current, of course, Current and Jack's Fork. And when they came together below that was
Van Buren, major flooding, and that sort of thing. Record floods.
I mean, their courthouse went underwater, which had never happened before. But who knows? But why would a 12-inch rain just sit? I'm watching this up in the middle part of the state. This hasn't moved. I don't know, up towards all the way from basically Jeff City down to Springfield. That has sat there for the last 5 hours.
Oh, it hasn't. It's not moving east at all.
It's absolutely stationary. Now, the rain has thinned out in there, but it's been raining there for 5 hours.
Right.
Where's that water going?
That's right.
It's the same place. It's not going to soak in anymore.
That's right.
And that's kind of what happened here. We had a stalled front. When that front stalls and it just sits and rains, ain't nothing you can do.
Yeah, it just accumulates, starts running off, goes into the creeks, and then they start rising. And that's goes back to, like you were saying, the low water crossings. You got to watch where you are, that sort of thing. And even to get to Loggers Lake campground on our district, there's 2 crossings that cross down through the bottoms of 2 hollows, and one is an actual water crossing. There's a spring up above it, and those get deep. Where you can't get out of the campground.
You can't get out. You find high ground and stay because you're not going anywhere for a while.
Get your camera out, start taking pictures.
Because that water will flow well. But let's hope we don't have any of that.
Right.
But it is going to be coming up that way, and so and the upper part of the Black River, since it's just one part of the tributary of the Black, it doesn't really get too bad till it usually gets down a little farther down towards Lesterville, down that area. That's when it really.
That's when the 3 prongs of the Black come together, right?
Well, they're all close enough that if one floods, then the other one's going to flood, and the other one's going to flood.
Pretty
and
good
all
chance.
Of a sudden you don't have a river, you have a lake.
Right. Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right.
When it gets down to Poplar Bluff, it's really a mess. And that can really be dangerous.
Yeah, that's right. So, gets big.
Yeah. Well. It gets really fast.
Yeah, that's right too.
That's really the point we try and make on when the water has a runoff. That first runoff you see trickling down the hill is so pretty. People like to see water coming over the rocks. When you start putting about 500 gallons there, then 5,000 gallons there, that water's going to run a lot faster.
Oh, yeah.
You don't want to take that water on. So again, be very cautious if you are out and about. If you see water traveling and it's more than 3 inches deep, and I don't care if you think it's 2 feet across, it doesn't matter. If you get knocked down by that water, you're not coming back up.
Right. And what's the slogan is something like turn around, don't drown, don't drown, turn around sort of thing. So
turn around, don't drown.
There's a lot to that. I mean, really.
And you'd be surprised, even though you can't see it, how much water. You don't know what that water's coming in from that other area. You may not be getting any rain where you're at, and all of a sudden you start to see a little more coming in. Oh, well, that's not going to last very long. You don't know.
Yeah.
It's really rain can be very, very, very unpredictable.
Yeah,
when it
that's
comes
the
to
location. Right, that's exactly right.
And then streams and creeks can be extremely unpredictable. The year that St. Louis got all the floods, they didn't get any rain. All the rain was down here.
All the rain was
here.
here.
In the middle part of the state.
Right.
Okay, well, you got the Merrimack, and you've got all those rivers coming in. You got the Missouri, so the Missouri got flooded.
Right.
So that ran in on the top part. Merrimack gets flooded. That comes in on the bottom part.
Right.
You wonder why Memphis is underwater.
Valley Park. That's
why they had to blow. They didn't have to, but they blew up that levee.
Oh,
down
that's
there
right.
in the Boot Hill and destroyed that land, and people were not happy about that.
Yeah, that's right. Trying to relieve the pressure. That's exactly right.
That all came from the middle part of the state.
That's
right.
right.
Nothing to do with St. Louis.
All the tributaries coming in there. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you were in St. Louis, the water was high. It was near flood, but nothing like what it was once it got past Arnold.
Right.
It was really high. The Merrimack was way out of its banks. And you look at the Merrimack today, and it's about 20 feet lower than that right now.
Yes. Yeah.
Very low.
Very low.
But what happens, and David, you can probably attest to this too, is that once water cuts a path, and it's wide, next time the river comes there, it's never going to get back up to that level. It's going to go back down lower, but it's not as concave maybe or tapered as it used to be.
And
it's gone.
Yeah, and like you said, part of that is, we try to control them by creating levees, by straightening streams and all this stuff, which actually in some ways makes the water start moving faster, which causes a little more erosion, which ends up blowing stuff out and creating issues. Yeah, you're right.
And you always know if something gets stuck in the water, a down tree or something like that, it gets stuck, and you watch that current hit that stuff. And that's one of the reasons why when we say turn around, don't drown, your vehicle may go off in the water. You may be able to get out on your vehicle. If you get in the water, you can get taken down, hit a tree, and go under, and you can't get out.
Right.
There's
that's exactly right.
That water pressure is...
The force of water. Anybody that's floated the current and seen a canoe wrapped around a root wad knows that water can bend. I mean, it's aluminum, but it's pretty structural, integrity type aluminum. It's heavier aluminum than just regular aluminum. Right. Wraps it right around,
really hard to do.
Yeah, it can be bad. So be prepared. It's coming.
Be prepared. So, we start talking about the National Forest. We start talking about different things. With the National Forest, anything new coming down?
I don't know about new right now. I'll think back on that. One thing that came to mind, though, was we were talking about the rain a little bit. The ATV trail system at Sutton Bluff. A couple of trails are closed while they're being rebuilt. I believe we know that 4 and 5 are closed, and that's still due to damage from that past flood. So there's got to be a lot of work done in there. But they closed, I believe it was 8 and 9 for a little bit to get the tread back in shape there. It had some damage too. And the nice thing is they usually like to shape it, get it in shape, get the limbs trimmed and all this kind of stuff, and then let it sit and wait for a little bit of rain to get on it so it kind of compacts it before we start riding on it. And this may be perfect timing. They've got them. It's pretty well done, I think, from what I understand. If we get this rain now, that'll really come in and really compact it well. They may be opened up here pretty quick. I think 1 and 2 were being worked on a little bit, but I believe they're all open now. I can't remember exactly. I have to go back and look. They change from day to day sometimes as we work on them. But the trails, and of course, like you were saying too, the fall is a great time to get out and ride. Still a little warm now, but it's still a great time to ride out there and that sort of thing. So.
And always remember, if you're going to be riding on those county roads, you need a permit.
That's right too. Yep, especially with the bigger machines. Only the less than 50-inch machines can ride on the trails and get down them. Actually, you can take. There have been some people that have tried to take bigger machines down, and they'll get so far,
don't make it, do they?
And they get so far, and then they're stuck. They've got to somehow pull themselves backwards to get out of a location to even be able to turn around to get out of there. And that's why they're not. The trail system originally, from way back in the early '90s, was designed as an ATV trail before there were UTVs and side-by-side type stuff, and it's being maintained that way because. It's interesting. The trail system is kind of a weird animal. If you maintain it for like ATVs, it can be a much more challenging, rougher trail. As you get wider, if we suddenly started making it for 65-inch wide UTVs, like a Polaris Ranger or one of these types of things, the trail actually gets easier. It's not allowed to climb as hard. It's not allowed to turn in tighter corners. It gives longer sweeping. A Jeep could easily traverse it, sort of things. It actually becomes easier. We've got some people that are interested in trying to bring some bigger machines, and we're like, I'm not sure you want those kind of trails. That's like driving a road, you know.
And there's a place for those. It's called Flat Nasty.
Yeah, that's right too. Flat Nasty can help out in some of those things. It gives you a little bigger place to ride.
They've got all kinds of different trails down there. They got ATV trails. They've got off-road trails.
Jeep,
different kind of trails.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
So you definitely would, if you have a larger vehicle, you definitely want to check them out.
Right.
It costs a little bit of money to go in there, but you don't have to get a permit to drive on a county road.
That's right. That's right. That's exactly right.
You're on a private trail.
Yeah.
So there's a little trade-off there, but
yeah.
If you're going to be staying at Sutton's Bluff, obviously you may want to be traveling with your vehicle, but make sure it's an ATV.
Right.
That's all right. You really do. Speaking of Sutton's Bluff and Loggers Lake, we do know that pretty soon they'll be shutting down. I think Tom gave me dates, but I don't remember what they are.
Yeah, we usually, it used to be before hunting season, and in some cases we're doing it past hunting season now because we've had some hunters that want to use the campgrounds, which makes sense.
Sutton's Bluff is usually near Thanksgiving.
Yes, I believe that's right. So, that would be that would be probably the last week of hunting season, which is that Tuesday before Thanksgiving. So, rifle season anyway.
I think that's about when they shut down.
I think that's right.
And Loggers Lake, though, I'm not sure without a concessionaire being there. I'm just not sure when
we
they
have a
shut
campground host right now.
Right.
But, it may shut a little earlier because of that if the host leaves, and it depends on our manpower, too, at the office. If we've got enough people to keep it going for a little bit longer into the fall, we'll just do that. But usually it may shut down a little earlier. Not unusually early, but just earlier than hunting season sort of thing. But we may be able to keep it open, too. We'll see.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah, there's like I said, I was trying to think of anything exciting and new happening, but it's kind of been this sort of summer thing. We've got folks out on fire out west. We've got
and there have been a lot of those.
And there's been a lot of those, as we've seen in the news and that sort of thing. And that should be starting to wind down. We sent 2 more people out to replace a crew on an engine that we have out in Oregon. Helicopter that's out in Oregon right now. So we sent 2 people to replace some folks on that coming back. And we still got pretty good crew out there. But it's hopefully going to slow down here pretty soon as fall gets in.
And you hear about, and you can probably help people out with this. They hear about these fires out west, and every year there's fires out west.
Right.
They think, well, what else is burning? There's nothing else left to
what's
burn
left,
out there.
right? Yeah.
Well, there's a lot.
There's a lot of acres out there. You just don't realize in that mountainous area that it's acres and acres and miles and miles of timber. And while the fire gets big at 100,000 acres or 300,000 acres, that's just a small part of the United States.
Right.
I
really got a real feel for that when we were in Hawaii, and they kept talking about everything on the news was about the volcano.
Yes.
And doing all this damage, and it's you can't do this, you can't do that, and the governor of Hawaii says, hey guys, that's like 1/1000th of the island.
Of the island, right.
But that's all they're showing. And
right.
And they make it look like all the islands are getting just overrun by volcanic ash.
by lava pouring through the city streets.
We went to Kauai, and there was no evidence of anything about a volcano.
Right.
Now they did have a severe rain prior to us getting there, about I guess it was March, and they had some where they had some like an 8-inch rain and landslides.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Sure.
So they had some areas that were not accessible. They hadn't cleaned it off. Well, then they got hit with this hurricane out there, and same area, and I'm like, oh man, they did not need that.
Steep areas. Those mountains are really steep. Yeah.
That had not resettled. I mean, they haven't gotten all that fixed yet.
Right.
Oh my gosh, that's gonna be.
Yeah, that
horrible.
That could be a mess, and that'll end up also out west. And after some of these fires, they have to be really careful if they start getting a bunch of rains. They come in and start causing some landslides, as we see in California all the time about blocking roads and stuff.
And houses come down.
And houses sliding down the hill and that sort of thing.
So, you think when you build that house, you'd go really deep into bedrock or something.
Right.
But,
right.
How deep is too deep, or how deep is not deep enough?
That's right. Yeah, that's exactly right. One of the big things that we try to watch, especially after a fire, is rehab. Trying to rehab a lot of the fire lines and things like that, putting ditches in them to drain them so that they don't just wash right down and cause more soil damage and this kind of thing. They have to do that out west. They do it with dozers, of course, on these big fires, so they can really, because they know it's steep and they've got a lot of area they got to cover. But yeah,
and some logical questions would be, well, if they know this is going to happen every year, why don't they go out there and take some of that fuel out of there? Mm-hmm. Well, as David's mentioning, that one little 100,000 acre fire that you hear about, that's a speck.
Yeah.
You could go out there and you could cut fire lines in every single one of these forests, but you know what? You don't know where it's going to start.
Right.
And once it gets started, by the time that somebody spots it, it's already grown.
Right.
And then by the time you get people out there, fire line or no fire line, that fire spread. I don't think people, and I can be mistaken here, but I've been near a fire that was intense. I cannot imagine what it'd be like to be in a forest fire where you're surrounded by fire. There's no air. If you're in amongst trees, there's no air. You're in a fire suit. It's hot.
Right.
Breathing apparatus, and you're trying to move. You can't see much because sometimes of the smoke. Now, sometimes the smoke is not down that low; it's already above. Mm-hmm. But David, people I don't think realize that fire inside inside that forest could get 300 degrees.
Oh, horrible! Yeah,
and you can't fight that very long before you got to get out of there.
There's kind of in the training, there's kind of a scale they measured on is like up to about 3 foot flame lengths is about all a human can work on. If you're digging line next to it, that sort of thing. When it kind of gets to that 3 foot length, then you get into dozers. You have to get into equipment that can survive the heat a little bit and be able to push line, where they're not being affected so much by the intense heat. After that, you're at aircraft. I mean, there's a point where you just, and even an aircraft, dropping retardant or dropping water won't do anything to it. It's just so bad. And you mentioned too that we see this 100,000 acre or 300,000 acre fire, and while it seems huge, and it is huge, there's millions and millions of acres of national forest, of national park, of private land, of state lands out west that are all kind of falling into this bad situation where a lot of the bug-killed timber is one of the big things. In some places in Colorado, they were talking about whole hillsides, mountainsides, killed by, I think it's lodgepole pine, but it was some kind of beetle kill. And not really being able to go in and thin it, not being able to harvest it, not being able to really reduce the fuel, kind of like what you're saying, due to regulations, due to environmental concerns, due to environmentalists who didn't want something in there.
We don't want to kill that beetle.
Right. Yeah.
Let the beetle kill the trees, but we don't want to kill the beetle.
Yeah, heaven forbid. But yeah, that's the kind of thing is that if we don't do something, we're going to end up in a bigger mess. And so active management, it's very, very interesting. Some of the guys have come back on some of the fires where active management was not allowed in an area, and the fire is just burning like crazy, and it goes on to either like one of the Indian reservations out west or private property where they've actively been managing the forest, and the fire just dies. It just drops to the ground. They can control it with hand crews, and it's done. But in the area that's not managed, particularly now, because we've let it go so long, and the Smokey Bear program has been very successful in stopping wildfire. But in the end, we probably should have been letting a few fires burn to reduce the fuel load in some of this thing, and reduce beetle populations too. That's one of those things that it kind of helps. Now, all of a sudden, we're kind of behind the 8 ball, trying to catch up by putting a little more fire on the ground to try and reduce fuel loads and to try and restore things back to a little bit. And we're seeing there where there's a definite difference between active management, how well it looks, and where it hasn't really been managed. And that's what we're trying to do here, even on the Mark Twain.
Right. Even when we, I think when people start thinking about this, it just goes back to me when storms and different things can happen, windstorms, and we've seen it happen. We saw it down by the conservation area down there.
Yes.
We saw the hillside on what may have been a small
tornado. Right. Yep. I think they confirmed a tornado,
I think it was rated 0, but it's still a tornado.
But it was a tornado.
Just lined the hillway.
Yeah.
They're down. But I remember the derecho and how long it took National Forest Service, conservation areas, and people, the conservation department, and everybody involved to be able to even get in there and remove some of that timber because of the safety factor. You had trees that were under tension, and if you cut the wrong place, you're going to let something go.
Right.
It's just,
That's exactly.
And you laugh on it when you see it in a cartoon when a tree smacks somebody in the face. You wouldn't be laughing if that tree comes flying back at you, and you got a huge tree and just under stress.
And launch you 20 feet over, somewhere else. But yeah, that's right. Yeah, there are a lot of concerns like that too when you get into some of that blowdown type stuff, or even just trying to move through some of the stuff even out west. Some of the beetle killed stuff is just jackstrawed on the ground where you're climbing to get through the woods because it's all laying down. It looks like a log cabin basically. Right. You're climbing up and down through the things. Makes it extremely difficult to maneuver, and like you said, the safety issue is just off the scale at that point. You're just so dangerous.
So that has to be, and you just have to go in there and take a look at it.
Right.
The safety people go in there and say this area is good, this area is bad. If you're going to go here, we've got this issue here.
Right.
If people are aware of the issue and you know how to attack it, okay, that's great. But you still know that's still a very dangerous thing.
Right.
You can't predict what that tree is going to do.
And you can't alleviate every safety issue. That's exactly right. So you're in there doing the best you can. look at everything over as best you can, and you know do the safest thing you can do to get it done. And you know, even then, there's still things that happen.
But what scared me about something like that, Dave, when I look at it, is that you have some of that happening on personal property where people don't understand that.
Right.
And the first thing they want to do is get out there and get those trees removed, and they cut the wrong tree.
Right. And something happens. Yeah.
Something can
and you know, that's an interesting point. I get a magazine at the office there called from the Tree Care Industry Association, and it's all basically arborists, people that working in the trees in cities and some other places, parks and things like that. And they have a calendar, which is an unfortunate calendar to have up there, but it has a calendar from the previous month showing deaths and injuries from tree, you know, fatalities or tree injuries from either homeowners trying to trim their own trees,
do something stupid,
or something. Yeah, so a tree falls and they cut it wrong and it's under tension and it whacks them. Or, but it also shows people in the tree care industry who have gotten hurt, didn't tie themselves into the bucket truck they were working in and fell out of the truck or fell out of the bucket. Or climbing a tree and something broke and as they were working on it, and it pinned them or something like that. You know, so it is that trees are dangerous, no question. And you know, that leads to an interesting thing too. The Timber Fun Day that happened on Labor Day, they had 15.
Had a good crowd.
Had a great crowd. Yeah, lots of kids' activities, lots of neat stuff to see. You know, Independence Dave brought some barrels to give away and some other things like that. We watched 15 loggers knock trees down. You know. In a competition to see if they could get close to the pin, you know, and all this kind of thing. And I believe it was Aaron McCall that actually won the competition. He got the end of his tree within like 1 foot 2 inches of the pin or of the pin he set. So that was good.
Not only side by side, but also the length.
But length, they had to, right. That's right. Had to estimate where that tree was going to fall. So so they did really well. They did good on that. And but it was one of those things where it was a constant reminder that it's still, even as simple as this appeared, it's still a dangerous thing. Knocking a tree down, cutting on a tree when it's down, under tension, this sort of thing. But yeah, that's kind of that thing too. We tried to remind people as we were watching them do it that was.
And in that case, that's an open area.
And that's an open area too. That should be a simpler.
Other trees out there, you know, and that's the thing people don't really realize. When a tree comes down, it's hitting branches.
Yeah. It's
rolling off. It's here. It goes there.
Right.
You know, and one of the things that people do need to remember too, and we're kind of off the national forest area here, but we are on some.
We're talking about trees. That's all right.
But we are on trees. Is that there has been damage to trees, and I know I still have a few limbs in my tree that are broke.
Right.
They're still hanging on. I mean, they're dead. They're up in the middle of the leaves, and one of these days they're going to come down.
Right.
And you know, if you can't get up there to get it, as long as you know it's there, you need to be very cautious when you're underneath there.
That's right.
It could pick the worst time, like when you're out raking leaves or maybe mulching leaves or cutting the grass. If that comes down, it can do serious damage to you.
Yeah, that's why they call them widowmakers. I mean, that's exactly right. You know, it's one of those things where you know it's up there, but you don't know when it's coming down. And that's why, you know, in a lot of places too, if it's in a yard where you're out there a lot or something like that, it probably would pay to call an arborist or somebody that can get up in the tree and take that limb out safely and get it on the ground, because just like you said, you just don't know. You just don't know. And that's where I think in this magazine where some of these homeowners tried to go up and take a limb out themselves and didn't have the equipment, weren't tied into the tree, weren't, you know, hanging by ropes and doing that sort of thing. And you'll see it a lot on ladders. They'll go up a ladder with a chainsaw, but they don't have any harness holding them tied to the tree. The ladder's not tied to the tree. And the limb goes, and as it comes down, it whacks the ladder out from under them, and they land on the chainsaw. When they fall 10 feet to the ground and land on the chainsaw, and so
or just land and break their back,
or just land. That's right. So
you're not expecting that.
Yeah.
And a lot of people now use these the saws are on the end of long poles.
Yeah.
We see that. You see the highway department doing it. People think, that must be pretty safe. Well, then they do it, and they're standing underneath the limb as they're cutting it.
When you're trying to reach that highest limb,
you know, guys, that's coming down on you. And what is the thing you're holding in your hand? It's a saw blade.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, okay, now, I know we all do things that after you think about it, you're thinking, man, was I pretty dumb doing that?
I can't believe I did that.
I can't believe I did that. Yeah. But you're right. Now, you know, I've had, like I said, I've had a few of those limbs in my trees, and I noticed one was getting close to coming down. I remember I was going to go cut the grass that day, and I went out that morning. still up there. When I came back, right when I was ready to cut the grass, it had come down.
Yes,
and it
that's
was a
right.
big one. And
That's right.
Thank you. I'm glad you did that now. Now, the other ones I have are smaller ones. I mean, they'll hurt, but chance of them doing a lot of damage, especially right now with the leaves, they're going to get buffered coming down, so they slow them down.
It's a little slow, but
when you're out there in the wintertime and there's nothing for it to slow it down, that's going to
a little wind hits it and just enough to break that last fiber
one little piece holding on. So be cautious, guys. And we're talking about, we're getting that time of year. Leaves are going to start falling. Things are going to start changing. What maybe little sap was left in keeping that thing held on, it's going to go. So just be prepared. If you're not sure, once this wintertime hits, look in your tree and look for anything. Limbs should not be hanging down.
Yeah, that's not normally the direction they grow.
Normal.
That's right. Yeah,
not normal.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, that's the thing too. Is as we get into fall and we start working outside more, cleaning up leaves, raking, doing some cleaning up stuff for the to put things away for the winter and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, watching for things like that and just being aware that you may have some problems or something like that. And if you can't do it safely, call somebody that can. And
and even when you're not on your own property, if you're out in the forest, always be looking at the trees for something that maybe looks a little loose, or if you see something dangling, avoid it.
Yeah, Mother Nature breaks limbs out there all the time in just the regular forest. Yeah, right. That's right. You don't know.
Tree fell. You don't know anything.
Right.
And you go out there and you make a nice camp. And when you do set up camp, and that's something we probably very rarely ever talk about, David, is when you do set up a camp. And people will, I've got a great area, or I got here, the trees are up here, and everything is wonderful.
Right.
Okay, have you really looked at those trees to make sure there are no branches that are ready to come down?
Right.
You might be sound asleep, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, your tent's cut in half.
Right. That's right, and that has happened, like you said. Even in organized campgrounds, that a tree that was just weak, they weren't, and came right down through a tent or something like that. And
sometimes you can't tell.
And you don't know, right?
You need to be careful.
Yeah.
So try and
be cautious.
Always be as cautious as you can. But if you can look up at a tree and notice, it looks healthy, a lot of leaves, and there's not a lot of dead limbs up there.
Yeah.
See a dead limb, I wouldn't put something.
Be careful.
Against it.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right.
You just never know.
That's right. That's right.
Well, my friend, I appreciate you coming in and spending some time with us today. And, of course, we try and do this every first Thursday of the month and get our conservation department. And I'm having a little trouble getting them in here right now. They've been kind of busy, but, there's only 2 agents right now.
Right, that's right, too.
Trying to get that situated.
Yeah.
So hopefully we can get them back on track by next time, because we'll have a lot of hunting things going on.
That's right.
An online bow hunting course now that's available from the Conservation Department. Check that out. If you're 16 years or above, you don't have to do it in person anymore.
Right.
You can do it online. And I know in Missouri that's a volunteer license. But if you go to other states, that's not a volunteer license if you want to bow hunt. So you might want to do that. And I do know they have some bow hunting hunts in St. Louis and Kansas City that are managed hunts.
Yes.
You have to have that. So
have that safety course, and that
safety course.
Yeah.
So if you don't have it, you can't go to those managed hunts.
And you're right too, because that is we don't think about it, but as we get in here, September 15th, I believe, is the opening of bow season.
It's here.
And gigging. I mean, so there's going to be people on the rivers doing stuff, and people in the woods. It may be too warm to be hunting, but there'll be people out there hunting. And
you never know.
You just never know. That's right. But we're getting into that.
If they get a cooler day and they want to get out there.
Yeah. That's right.
Or a lot of times they go scouting at that time.
True.
And they take their bow with them, and you never know what you're going to find.
Right.
You might just find that deer's looking at you like, "What do you want?"
Yeah.
I just checked my calendar. You can't shoot me
you
yet.
Can't do it yet.
Wait a minute. Uh-oh. I got the wrong week.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I need a new battery.
Yeah. But, there's a lot of consideration to always make sure that you do safety, no matter if it's a rifle, pistol, whatever you're using, always make sure. But, again, that online bow hunting instruction, even if you're a mature hunter, maybe it's a good refresher course.
It is. That is one of those things too. It never hurts to just go back, and there are new things come out all the time in the hunting world and stuff. And you just right. That's right. And you're right. That is nice. And we are lucky here. We've got a lot of land to shoot on. We've got Indian Trail Conservation Area has a shooting range, so. it's one of those things too where
Shawnee Mac has the arrows.
Shawnee Mac has the archery range. That's right. So you've got some opportunity to practice before the season and sight your rifles in things like this instead of having to sight them in that Friday night before Saturday deer season. It's usually if you can get out now and do it when the weather's a little nicer.
Usually makes it a little bit
more less stress
too.
Yeah, that's right too.
Yeah.
So
and also don't forget we want to talk about national forest. You can hunt.
Yes, you can hunt on the national forest. The only place you can't hunt is within a campground. It makes sense. And kind of around the campground. I think there's a foot limit or something within 100 feet of the outside of the campground. You can't shoot across roads. That's state law, I believe. Some things like that. So yeah, there's some just common sense, safety things and that sort of thing. But yeah, the national forest is yours to use like that. And just remind people too is that a lot of the roads. You can't go all the way out the road. Come by our office. We've got motor vehicle use maps, which are real good at getting you identified where you are on the road and where the road really ends. And then from there, walk a little. I know it's a little further to drag a deer and some things like this, but it may get you into a more remote area where you may get more wildlife coming around you and that sort of thing. But we've got a lot of area, and I think Tom, sometime back, did an exercise on a map one time and found out that for the most part, you can reach every acre of national forest within a half mile of a road. So you're really not that far. It really isn't that far.
Now, I highly recommend, though, if you are going to go hunting, go with somebody and go as a pair because we already talked about it. The cell service is not very good out there.
Right.
And if you do get hurt, and I'm not talking about a gunshot wound or bow wound, you can trip over a log and break your ankle.
That's right.
Half mile's not very far.
Right.
Half mile's really far when you're trying to drag
when
yourself.
When you're limping, yeah, that's right.
Trying to drag yourself through the forest and you got a broken ankle. And so please, always try and think about, maybe you might want to go out by yourself, but go out with a friend. Walk with him. He can walk side by side with you. You don't have to say a word.
Yeah.
But just make sure there's somebody else there with you.
That knows where you are. That's kind of the thing. Even if you separate.
Tell people where you're going to be.
Tell people where you're going to be. That's the thing, too. If you have to go by yourself, you're right. It's, make sure they know exactly where you are and when you think you'll be back, so that they can look at the clock and be like, he was supposed to be back 30 minutes ago. Or
an hour ago.
Yeah, or an hour ago or something.
When it gets to be dark out in the forest, it's hard to find someone.
Right. Yeah, he was supposed to be back about last year. I wonder if he's still out on his stand.
He may be. You may not want to go find him, but he may be.
That's right.
Yeah, well,
that's right.
And we joke about it, but please. And also, let's talk a little bit about the stands.
Yes.
About it is getting that time of year where people are going to want to put their stands
right.
up, but you can't do that yet.
I think that is correct. I want to say it's something like, is it a week before season or 2 weeks before season? Which actually, right now, might be 2 weeks before season if it's the 15th. For bow hunting, as you should say. But
I don't know.
But yeah,
a lot of people don't use stands for bow hunting, but some do.
Some do. That's right. Yeah, and I think the the rule since the last deer hunt goes through the middle of January. I don't know the conservation department regulations exactly, but there's something. There's a muzzle loaded special hunt, or something like that.
At the end of the year.
So it does go out a little bit further anyway. And
January 15th, I think you have to have them off.
I think that's what it may be. What it is by January 15th, you need to remove them from the woods. It's kind of considered like leaving trash is what it is, even though it's not trash. It's kind of that leaving stuff on national forest.
But you can't leave your stand in the forest. It has to have an identifying tag.
Right. That's Conservation Department rules. You have to have your name and address and a phone number, I believe is what it is on there, so that if they need to contact you or we find it or something like that, and even if somebody steals it from you and your name's on it and they find it and it's like, hey, that's so-and-so's stand. So, yeah, that's one of those things to help identify them.
Do not nail it in a tree.
Right.
Do not compromise the tree in putting up your stand.
Right. It should just be tied to it with straps, usually is how it works, but don't put any climbing, screw-in climbers and stuff like that on them. That's one of those damaging national forest resources. It sounds crazy, lots and lots of trees out there, but if everybody does it, then we end up a lot of damage. So,
you will be fined.
And if you're caught with that and your name's there, that's exactly right. So
so be cautious about that.
Right,
too. But it is allowed.
Right. It is allowed, and that does bring up another thing that came up yesterday was talking about game cameras on national forest, and they are allowed. They are allowed. It's kind of like the thing with the tree stand is. you're leaving your property on National Forest property. So we understand that there's a reason for it and that sort of thing. But make sure that, you've got it locked to a tree. Don't screw it to a tree. Strap it or chain it, whatever the deal is. Make sure it's pointing in a proper direction, that sort of thing, that you're getting what you want to get. And so you have to be a little careful about, cameras. And if they're stolen, that's on you. That's just what happens. But they need to be removed too after a certain amount of time, after hunting season and stuff.
You can't leave them up there for 5 years. And, forgot to change the battery.
Yep.
Yeah. But anyway, thank you for coming in.
No
David.
problem.
Appreciate that. And our National Forest Thursday right here on KSMO Radio 1340, as well as our Conservation Department. And of course, we'll try and get them in next month, especially because of the hunting classes that got to be coming up fairly soon. And of course, the hunting season as well. Anyway,
good.
Thanks, buddy, for coming in. Appreciate that. Keep it here, KSMO Radio. We have coming up our Bass Pro Outdoor program, and then some news from the Associated Press, civic happenings, and more on KSMO Radio.
We are Missouri Farm Bureau Insurance, and we're for home sweet home.